Okay, what we have here is a nice little riffle. You've got a little bit of fast water coming into some slightly deeper stuff, and yeah, you tend to get the trout inside the deeper bits immediately behind the white water, as you can see there. Reason being, the water's starting to heat up, it doesn't hold oxygen as much, so the fish get a bit lethargic and tend not to feed. So in behind those little white watery bits, you will get them, the water's more oxygenated, and yeah, you'll have a crack. Now right about here is where that fish was holding. Not very deep, you're probably looking at about knee depth. Let's find out, eh? Let's find out. Yep, there we are, we're up to my knee. You can see why it was there. You've got that faster water coming through, nice and oxygenated. It all channels in between these rocks basically. So all the food funnels into just one tight compact stream. Got a bit of slower water down towards the bottom. Trout are lazy by nature. He's just going to sit in that slower water, slowly, gently finning. As something whizzes past over top or beside it in that faster water, he's going to rise up, grab it, head back down to the slower stuff. Right here is another likely spot for one. You've got a protruding rock with deep water in front of it. Now surprisingly, the trout is going to sit immediately in front of the rock. His tail fin's going to be just about touching it. Reason being, just because of drag and blah blah yada yada physics etc. You're going to have the slowest part immediately in front. There's every possibility you'll see his fin sticking out of the water. That's how close to the surface he'll be. And it'll normally be eating, you know, flying insects and stuff that's just dropped into the water. Might be able to entice him with a spinner or a nymph, but his eyes are generally up. And then immediately behind, you've got a bit of a V, 1 and 2. A V of faster water which is going to carry food, and there's every possibility you'll have trout on the edges of that V. Generally, say about 1 foot, 2 foot behind. Same story if that rock is slightly underwater. Back this way we've got what's called pocket water. We've got a whole heap of faster stuff going between stones and rocks and boulders and crap. You've got a whole heap of deeper parts amongst it, and any of those little deep holes could hold trout. Same story, you're going to get them in a V behind a rock, immediately in front of a rock, or right down the bottom where the water's slower and you've got faster stuff going over or beside them. The trick here is if you hook something, hold on tight. There's not a lot of places for it to go. He's going to fight like you would not believe. Shitload of fun. Nice little undercut there with some, yeah, a little bit of a riffle going past it. Because it's an undercut, you know it's going to be a bit deeper there, so it's likely to hold fish. Got a nice flow of food drifting along the top there. The overhang gives them a little bit of shade, sort of a sense of safety. Yeah, they feel like they're quite safe there. Not for long, hopefully. Incidentally, that one didn't have any fish. I've tried it already. Also, you've got that piece over there. Little bit of semi, you know, riffly, white watery stuff coming into something a little bit deeper. Got a rock over there, bit of a channel running past it. Same story there, no fish today, but that would be a good place to hold them. Now over here you've got a slightly deeper bit, bit of a riffle, you know, slightly faster water running past. and overhanging vegetation. That's always going to be a good place for fish to hold. You're going to get food dropping off the branches and leaves and stuff above them, fall into the water, they're going to come out, grab it. The catch here is it can be tricky to cast to them without catching some of that vegetation. If it's a really likely looking spot and you hook up a branch and he doesn't fall free or anything, best bet in my opinion is just to cut your losses, break your line, tie another lure on, because if you walk over there to get it, that there's only about thigh deep. If you walk over there to get it, you're going to spook any trout that might be holding there and ruin your chances. Fingers crossed your lure stays hanging in the branch when your line breaks, so that way you can go over after you've fished it, after you're satisfied that there's nothing there, and you can get your lure back. One thing to bear in mind with these sort of spots, well, anywhere really, your best bet is to cast either upstream, across, or on a bit of a diagonal. If a trout sees you, he's going to spook, he's going to go away. Quite often you might be winding a lure in, you'll have a trout following it, and then suddenly he veers off, does a right angle last minute at 1,000,000 miles an hour. He's seen you, and there's every possibility he's not going to try and bite anything else you put in front of it. He's going to go into the deepest part of the pool or lie or whatever it is, and he's just going to sit there and sulk for half an hour to an hour. So yeah, if that happens, maybe cast another lure or two around just in case, and then just go home. Not go home, head to your next spot. Should have a trout, but doesn't this morning. Either that or he wasn't interested in what I had on offer. Pretty obvious why. Nice little bit of white water running in there, heavily oxygenated and just quite deep. About crotch level actually. Now over here did, or possibly still does have a trout. I lost an absolute thumper of a rainbow first thing, and I was standing in the bottom right hand corner of the pool casting up towards this white water. He was sitting in the slightly deeper stuff, hit, ran like you wouldn't believe, jumped all over the place and threw the hook. There's also a Scody little brown sitting in there somewhere, which I noticed 2 days ago. Real slabby. If I hooked that one, it was definitely going to be going home. Whoa, bits like this get me gooey in the panties. Got a whole heap of super oxygenated water pumping into a nice deep little pool like that. What I like to do is try and angle my casts across that faster flowing water and just do it bit by bit, maybe a cast right up in front, a cast a little bit further back, a little bit further back, a little bit further back. And the beauty of something like this is because it's a bit darker and cooler and you've got that much, frothy water pumping into it, you're likely to have fish lying right the way down. Oh yeah. So start your way down at the bottom, cast up into it, and then walk along the edge here, and up that way and do your casting across that white water. Yeah, very, very likely to hold fish. One thing I should also point out, I'm in quite gravelly, crunchy sort of ground there. You want to tread quite carefully, fairly quietly. The fish will sense the vibration of any rocks crashing around, and that's it, you're not going to have a crack at them. Now one thing to bear in mind when you're fishing late summer, early autumn in drought sort of conditions like I am, take a container with you, fairly decent sized one, not for anything fish related, but because of all that. Woohoo! Blackberry wine and maybe a blackberry and apple pie in there. Sweet. Now, earlier this morning this pool here produced the goods in a huge way. At the moment, you know, sun's getting higher, water's getting warmer. You would expect them to be in this bit here, where you've got your faster water running into it. But because I got up nice and early this morning, let's have a bit of a walk. They were down that way, where things are a lot quieter, a lot gentler. Still a bit of deepish water, around about thigh deep. Reason they were there is because it was earlier in the morning, the water was still cold, and that way, you know, more oxygen, they're a bit more active. So in those sort of conditions, your trout tend to patrol the pool a bit more. There's no real current as such. Just zigzagging around the show, picking up any morsels that they come across, and unfortunately for two of them, my spinner was one of those morsels. I've got not a bad sort of a rainbow, which is in my bag as we speak, and a brown, which is a little bit on the slabby side, so he got thrown back. So there we have it, the end result. The two that I kept, there were another two that I released, a rainbow and a brown, and another rainbow which I lost. Back by lunchtime, would have left about, left for the river around about 8 o'clock this morning. I possibly could have headed there a bit earlier, say 7:30, but sleep's pretty important to me. And yeah, I'll get them prepped for the pan. One thing to bear in mind is all the tips that I gave are ideal for summer when the waters are very warm, very low. During winter, or you know, autumn, winter, spring, the water tends to be a bit deeper, a bit cooler, and the trout tend to congregate more in those deeper pools, and current's not too super important to them. So there we have it, those trout are in their new home, which is inside half a dozen jars inside a pressure canner. Going to have us some bottled trout. Now while we wait for the pressure to rise up on that and everything to get ready, I'll discuss one last little thing. Most of my fishing these days is using spin gear. I know how to fly fish, I'm not too bad at it, but in these parts I get a little bit lazy. I'd rather just throw a spinner on, cast it out, retrieve it. If that breaks off, throw another spinner on, cast it out, retrieve it. And you don't have the risk of hooking up in blackberries and gorse and rubbish behind you, in front of you, beside you if the wind's blowing. We're also in windy sort of area here in Taranaki, so that causes issues. Most of my casting, because you're in fairly smallish sized rivers and streams, you have to be very precise. You have to put that lure exactly where you want it to go. So don't be afraid of sitting on the backyard and just practicing your casting over and over and over, spending a good hour or two at it. It's going to benefit you in the long run. What you want to do is you want to be able to cast about 1-2 feet in front of where you think a trout is going to be sitting, and wind back in towards it. And sometimes you've got little pockets where you've got rocks and sticks and branches and shrubbery and all sorts of rubbish, and you have to be really precise. We're talking, within 30 centimetres of a chosen spot. So don't be afraid to practice. And yeah, that'd be about it. So happy fishing!